we supposed to all say that we're here or something, or is that only for a roll call vote? I thought there was some Zoom procedure that we were supposed to follow.
I mean, if y'all want to say your names and that you're here, it can't hurt, right?
Well, if we don't need to, that's okay. Maybe it's just for a roll call vote. So, okay. Um,
And Addie just joined, so you do have the 6 members who are going to make it tonight.
okay. So I think our first order of business is to continue without testimony, the continued public hearing for site plan review for 163 Sunset Road for an ADU. Do I have a
Mhm.
motion to continue to
March
March
9th at 7
9th
p.m.
at 7 p.m.?
Motion to continue.
Second.
Roll call vote, please, starting with whoever's last name is. So be Dwight.
I think that's me. Demay, aye.
Vegas, aye.
Addie?
I'm having connection issues.
Okay. Joe, we can go to Joe.
Yeshua,
Len and I.
Smith, aye. Okay. The next order of business was to review the ADU site plan review rules and regulations and vote on it. And with apologies, I missed this part of the meeting last time because I was sick. So, Julie, what's the best way to do this? You had received and consolidated additional comments based on the last meeting. What do you think the best way is to review any additional comments about this?
Why don't I screen share the version that I have that includes all the comments that I got,
Okay.
and then we can just look at them. The board had a number of things they
Yeah.
wanted adjusted, and then there were some questions that I reached out to John Mativier about. Let me just find, I have a lot of windows open. And then I did receive feedback from Board of Health and also from the Historical Commission. So I put them all in one place. And actually, let me scroll back to the top here. Too many things on my screen right now. Okay. So can you all see the document?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the first page of it. And let me just let Addie back in. She's having trouble connecting.
If you could zoom in a tiny little bit once you let Addie back in, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure, no problem. Is that better? Or
That's better. Thank you.
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. So let me just make sure. Addie, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Might have to leave my video off just because it seems like I'm having connection issues.
Worries. So yeah, so we're just going through the ADU site plan review rules and regulations, and I mentioned, if you didn't hear, that I did reach out to John Mativier about some of your questions, specifically Addie, and then I did make some of the adjustments that were suggested by the board, and I received feedback from Board of Health and the Historical Commission. So that's all in this document. So I made links like was suggested. I put a paragraph alerting applicants that really the first step is to meet with the Board of Health. The Historical Commission had made a suggestion that I mention them actually further down in the document, but I thought the suggestion was better here right up front, because if there is an application in the historic district, that's a hurdle that probably should be figured out either before the planning board process or during the planning board process. So that's something we would want to coordinate and know up front. And then I guess I'll just keep going. I'm gonna my comments are on the sidebar, so just make sure I'm not missing anything. Let's see. What else?
Could you scroll back up, Julie, to the bottom of page 1?
Sure. Page 1, you said? Okay.
The bottom of page 1. And in this, the site plan clause here, where it says the site plan shall include a zoning table with the following parameters. Is that the same thing as the site plan review application form?
The zoning table piece of it?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So, I mean, it's a table that kind of specifies what the zoning dimensional requirements and parameters are, and then whether the structure meets those requirements. So, yeah, we do have a similar requirement in the site plan review. regulations for like regular site plan review.
Okay, I'm just wondering like what an applicant has to, I mean, I get what they have to submit in Form 1 of the package, but then it looks like they have to submit the information again on the site plan.
Oh, are you saying this is redundant, putting that here?
Yeah, sorry, yeah,
Okay.
sorry, yeah.
Okay.
That was my concern, is that the information is getting submitted, seems to be getting submitted in two different places.
Yeah, but do we need that for the plan? Is it relevant to the plan itself, since the plan is the document that's approved? So when someone goes to refer to it after the fact, they're not looking at the application, they're gonna be looking at the plan.
So this is this is specifying that the zoning table would be on the site plan. And then Dwight, you're saying that below in the application form, we actually have the same requirement.
I guess if it's on the plan, which makes sense, then does it need to be on the application form?
Great question.
Oh, my feeling is if it's required for the plan, it should be on the plan, because the plan becomes the record of the town, right? The application probably will be lost, wouldn't be carried forward. And if that information isn't there and it's relevant to the plan, it should be on the plan. That's just my way of thinking, that, you know, if this is pertinent to someone looking at this in the future, how they make this decision, did it satisfy these things? And the table's on the plan, they can go back to and say, okay, at the time this satisfied X, Y, and Z. Whereas if it's in the application form, that won't be carried forward.
Why don't we just see how it's listed in the form?
I'm looking at the form right now, and it's not one-to-one exactly the same information.
Yeah. Huh.
Right, in fact, is it just frontage?
Frontage and acreage, yeah.
Yeah, frontage and acreage.
To Joe's point, would we also want to include the assessor's map sheet and lot number on the site plan?
Usually that is something that we have a bigger checklist of things that are required to be on a site plan. And
Okay.
usually that information is on that list, as well as like the map and lot number of all the neighboring properties as well.
Yeah, like I said, if it's information that's pertinent to the document as a whole, as a legally binding whatever, in the view of the town or someone else, it probably should be included in the plan. That's all. Because if it's in the application, it gets lost. It doesn't get carried forward. Once the plan's approved and, 5 years after the fact, that's kind of what I'm getting at. Someone looks back at it, is this relevant information that needs to be there for the town or anyone else?
I'm fine leaving it as it is. It just seems to me that we're asking for the same information in multiple places.
No, I understand, but there are different needs in different places for it. And I'm not sure that's a good plan. That's why I'm posing the question. I'm not sure, but if it is part of that, then it should be on there. If not, then we can remove it.
Well, another difference here is that this is saying the zoning table needs to have existing and proposed, and I think Form 1 just has existing.
Yeah.
But to Joe's point, I think anything that we want to know, good to have it on the site plan itself.
So I guess the other point I would make, are any of these things tied back to something regulatory? i.e. number of parking spaces, I guess the lot area frontage, that's all part of bylaws, right?
Correct.
So as a quick check, I guess, with these things laid it out, instead of someone going through and having to determine all that and figure it out in the plan, this is a fairly quick method of compliance.
Yeah, so that's part of the reason we require it, and then we can trust and verify the information. What I can do is I can refer to the like site plan checklist that we have. It's just that it's going to include like a lot more things than are most
Are these
likely
things
to
already
be
included in
needed.
the checklist?
Sorry, say it again.
Are these things listed here, verbiage and words included in the checklist?
Yeah, and the checklist has like a lot more stuff. Um, we were just actually
Hmm.
looking at it the other day because we got the fire station plan submittal. Um, so I can refer to it. It's just like it includes a lot more than you probably need for an ADU.
Mhm. So I guess my question would be, is this particular information helpful for the plan or needed?
I always think it is.
Yeah, I would think
Yeah.
that the information that's highlighted is important to have on the plan.
Yeah. I agree.
I say we keep it, move on.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Okay. I'm just scrolling down to where I see changes that I made. Um,
Hmm.
okay, so on Appendix A, hold on, let me let Addie back in the room. She's having trouble again. Um, so this is kind of where we say like how the documentation we're requiring relates to different sections of the bylaw. And I modified some of the wording related to how the planning board, this process interfaces with the Board of Health. And then I did get some feedback from Linda on some language that she thought would work. Linda and the Board of Health agree that their process should be separate from this, but that applicants should be alerted to that the Board of Health has requirements, and that our decisions should have a condition, which um, we did include in the last ADU decision that you guys issued. It was similar but slightly different language than this. And I should note that this condition here, this information, like this is required by the building commissioner prior to issuing a building permit. So it's not necessarily any different than what.
Yeah, I agree with it. Just emphasizes the point.
Hmm. Yep.
So should I keep going? Are you guys okay with this?
Yep, it seems reasonable to me.
Yes. Hmm.
All right. Okay. And then Addie had a lot of, I think maybe other people too. I'm just remembering her comments. But there was a lot of comments about the cheat sheet, and I did reach out to John. He got back to me right away. He did create this cheat sheet, so I was mistaken. I thought it came from the state, but he actually created it. And he gave me some of the rationale behind some of the things and then some suggested changes that he thought would make it more clear. And I think I provided his email in the packet,
Yeah,
but I
I saw
also
it.
put some of it like in the sidebar. And I didn't know if this helped to kind of address the issues or if there are additional questions. Eddie still is
No,
here?
I'm here now.
Awesome.
I think it's I haven't had a chance to review it in excruciating detail. I apologize, but um, it seems like he's been responsive to my comments.
Yeah.
Okay, so just let me know if you want me to keep going.
I know we talked about this before, but the attic space, what does the building code define as ceiling height? Because I remember commenting on it, if I went up there and stood up, you know, at the ridge line and everything else is coming down, is that habitable space? You know, or something else, you know, or if they've got you know, supports running across from one side to the other.
It's specified in building code. I don't know what it is offhand because I don't do residential, but
I'm in
it's-
an attic right now. It's been about 10 years since I renovated this space. I'll show you.
Well, I mean, I know if I go up into my attic, it's one of those pull down stairs,
Um,
whatever it is, not to say that it couldn't be converted to full stairs or something else, but you know, if you have cross sections supporting from one roof line to the next, and you're ducking every 5 feet. But I can stand up in between those. Is that habitable space?
There's, like, from my own experience, there's a section of this room that's very easy to walk in, and then different sections where I definitely can't. And I believe it was 7 feet was required for a certain amount of the space to be considered habitable, and I got an occupancy permit. But it has been 10 years, and so I don't want to misrepresent.
I won't belabor the
Yeah.
point. I'm just asking the question because it's not clear to me, that's all.
I think the requirement is that you have to have there's a minimum average height and then there's a minimum height, and I think it's 4 feet or 4'6". That defines habitable. I'm not sure about that, but that's what I recall.
4'6" is habitable.
If it's, that's how I forget what it is.
It takes an average. So like it's like if you define a parapet, you take the average height. So it's not necessarily the height at the top of a roof on a sloped roof. It's an average height. I believe they do the ceiling height in an attic the same way. So if the average height of the space is a certain number, and I assume the building code he's referring to is it CMR? Is it Mass Code, or is it IBC or IRC? Or I think it would be helpful to specify.
Well, I see R305 down
Yeah,
below.
but that doesn't state what building code is. I'm assuming international.
It's international, adopted at the state level, used by local building commissioners.
Okay, so I think that would be helpful to just instead of just saying building code, I think it would be helpful to, because I usually see something like CMR if it's accessibility requirements. I don't know.
But the other question I'd have is again, I'll make reference to my own house because it's older, but you know, I've got to pull down stairs. How is access to the attic part of the equation of habitable space? Right? Or access to an unfinished basement. You know, if there's a crawl space underneath there, and I'll use Dwight's analogy of 4'6" or something, you know. These are all spaces that, depending on how you can get there, kind of define whether it's usable or not.
I think all these things are defined in the building code.
I think they
Okay,
are.
I'm not up to speed with it, so I won't belabor.
I'm using AI to summarize this, but I'm seeing 50% of the required floor area must be 7 feet or higher. No portion of the required floor area can be lower than 5 feet. So I think you're right. I think this is clearly spelled out in the building code. And
So
as long as, go ahead, Addie.
in the prior to applying section, it refers to, says the construction of protected use ADU shall conform with the state building code, capitalized term.
Okay.
Title V of the sanitary code, local building and health regulations. So I think maybe just when we refer to this in that cheat sheet section, just refer to the state building code. I think it's a pretty standard term that we use in Mass. Rather than just capitalizing the word building, but not the word code. Just capitalize state building code in Appendix D.
Yep.
Is this what you're talking about, Addie?
Yeah.
Okay. Should I keep going?
Yep.
All right. Okay, so this is the application form, and I did make some adjustments based on your feedback from last time. I reordered things, and then I tried to make it clear how applicants are supposed to respond. So yes, no, or not applicable. And then the historical commission just corrected my mention of the historical inventory and gave it its accurate name and date.
Just one question about including the specific date there. I mean, we'd have to revise the form with each revision to the historic property survey. So should we just say something like the
Yeah.
currently
Most recent.
applicable historic building survey or historic property survey?
I added the words most recent. Is that
Makes sense.
Carlisle's most recent historic properties survey? Does that
Yeah.
work?
I
Okay.
think that works.
Especially if you aren't going to update it in the near term. Great. Okay, should I keep going?
Yep.
All right. Form 2. So this is where we have the applicant's professional certify the square footage of the space. And then the next form is the building commissioner statement, which is actually just certifying both things, that the ADU will conform with the state building code and the protected use ADU will meet the square footage requirement. Hold on, I thought I did that a little differently. Let me see if I'm making a mistake. Okay, and then Form 4 is this affidavit of common ownership, and I had town council review the language that describes kind of like what the penalty would be if zoning enforcement needs to be taken.
Julie, does
Yeah.
the site plan approval get recorded?
Yeah,
Okay.
and they have to provide proof of recording before they can pull a building permit.
So
And actually, you in Carlisle's zoning bylaw, you guys have a provision for appeals of site plan review that follows. Actually, that's mentioned here. It's mentioned somewhere in here.
I'm just only asking
Yeah.
because a title company would find the site plan review with this affidavit in it and wouldn't you have a very difficult time selling something separately. So that's an added protection.
Yeah, I mean, if the affidavit ends up being part of the decision, right?
Well, it seems like it should be, right?
Yeah, so we have conditions in the decision that relate to the common ownership, but the site plan application hasn't traditionally been part of what has been recorded.
Well,
So maybe it should be.
I don't think the affidavit has to be. Just the fact that common ownership is required, making its way into the site plan approval that gets recorded will be enough to alert title.
Right. All right. So do you guys have anything else? Or are we ready?
No,
We
I
good?
think it looks
Yeah.
good.
Okay. I'll just save this. And I will. Is Sarah still with us? Did we lose Sarah? I think we
We
lost Sarah.
did lose Sarah.
Maybe we're having a plague of computers forcing shutdown. That's what mine did. The machines are finally taking over. Do you want me to take over in her stead, Julie? So we
I
can
think
keep
that
moving
would be
forward?
helpful. Yeah. I haven't heard from her, so I don't know
Okay.
what the specific challenges.
Let me see if I can find the agenda. All right, what do we have next on the agenda? We
so
have,
Oh, wait, we have
you
to
guys-
vote.
Do we need to vote?
Yeah.
oh yeah,
it would be
I
great if you
apologize.
guys would vote.
Okay, so I would like to take a motion to approve the rules and regulations governing site plan review for a protected use accessory dwelling unit, dated February 9th, 2026, as amended per this discussion.
Tonight, yeah.
So moved.
May I? Oh, yes.
What was that, Dwight?
I think if we're now voting, may I?
Oh,
Somebody
I
should
didn't hear a
second.
second.
Did
I
we
didn't
get a
hear a
second?
second.
I did.
Oh.
I seconded.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Stacy.
Yep.
Go ahead, Dwight.
May I?
Vegas, aye.
Grady, aye.
Yeshua,
Len and I.
Okay. Great, thanks, guys. So that's 5-0 approved. We will get those rolling. We might have a couple applicants coming in the next few months, so great.
All right. By my clock, we have one more minute before we can go to the ROSC zoning bylaw. So
mhm.
I have
Maybe we'll
25
just-
seconds.
sing Jeopardy in our heads and then we'll move
Oh,
on.
here's Sarah coming back. Hold on, let me let her in. Hi, Sarah. Welcome back.
Sorry.
Okay, just the way it's going tonight.
We
did
we did vote,
Okay, excellent.
and we are now at 7:30 and moving on to ROSC. You can take it away.
Perfect.
I hand
Okay.
it back to the chair.
Battery problems. Oh, okay. Let me get my agenda open. Hold on. Everything closed. I think it is time to start discussion for the CROSC bylaw amendments. And Julie, I know you shared this morning the sort of collective thoughts of the board. Do you think, just trying to figure out the best way to, I know you guys had a pretty robust discussion last time without me, so let me know if you think this makes sense, but were there sort of common, I guess, questions, what do we need to decide? We need to look at the schedule and we need to decide on sort of parcel sizes, right?
Yeah, I think the big thing for tonight is deciding whether you want to move forward with something at annual town meeting.
Mhm.
And then,
Maybe we start with the schedule.
yeah, and I will say I did receive feedback from 3 members. Yeah, so here, why don't I have the schedule open. Let me just find it and just share it real quick. Okay. Can you all see it on your screens?
You do it a little
Yep.
bigger.
Okay, sure, no problem. Is that good, Sarah?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So tonight's the green, and then it's working kind of the backwards or forwards, however you want to look at it, to town meeting, which is Monday, May 18th. I'll give you guys a minute to like look it over and then let me know if you have any questions.
Select board closes a town meeting warrant tomorrow
Mm-hmm.
for
Yeah,
a May 18th meeting. That seems like it's earlier than typical,
Yeah.
no?
Pretty early.
Yeah.
So
And
we'd
there's-
have to be ready for a hearing in a month and a half.
yeah, so I have the
Okay.
hearing scheduled to open on March 23rd. Like you could always add meetings if you're not ready or whatever. Like this is just the first way I've figured out this can work. There's probably other ways it could work. And then like every time there's no harm in like having a placeholder on the warrant and then deciding you're not ready closer to town meeting. Like if that's how this goes. So
Okay, so this schedule means we're adding a meeting each month so that we can cover the ground necessary and do hearings and so forth.
correct. Yeah, I had added in one extra meeting each month.
Yep.
Like in yeah.
And I think other the things we'd have to add in is outreach to other boards and committees. So that would mean another, if we did it like before, where we sort of divide and conquer, and Joe went to Board of Health and I went to Select Board, and I forget who went to FinCom. I had a couple conversations. I went to FinCom once, so we'd have to also factor in all the different outreach to boards and committees in addition to, or
Yeah.
is this enough community outreach? Is this enough, do we have the pulse of the community, whether or not we think this is something that would have a chance of passing at town meeting, which would, in the last time was an open house, right? Or a couple open houses.
Mm-hmm.
So planning for that as well.
Right.
This enough, this feels like, well, I'm not saying we're fast tracking it, but I also don't want to lose the momentum that's already been built for this, but we have enough runway for this.
Sort of feels to me like it's definitely doable from the standpoint of the process and the workload. We did more in less time with MBTA. The thing I worry about is I don't want the community to feel caught off guard,
Mhm.
and have a backlash against this because it's a really good idea. And if we can communicate it well and accurately, it can very much be framed in the context of this is an alternative to um, properties becoming subdivided, whether through subdivision roads and subdivision plans or through A&R lots that carve up larger properties, and it's an alternative to those properties becoming clear cut and massive houses being built on them that could represent lots of wins all around the table. But I worry that we don't have enough time to get the right message out and build support around that. And it'll feel like a bait and switch to some who can become very vocal around, well, we didn't get what we wanted for MBTA, so now we're trying to get at it another way.
Well, I have a question. So is it, we're not, we're just setting up a type of zoning and we're not going to put it on any sites? Is that accurate?
Correct.
That's right.
Except that you would figure out a minimum lot area
Yeah.
that would be required for this zoning to be utilized, right? And then that, like the maps I sent earlier today, like would be, as they're currently configured, right? The eligible parcels.
But they
Similar to how the ROSC and senior ROSC are written today, it would be sort of a version of that.
So would those sites automatically be zoned this way? Or would that be another meeting or town meeting or something?
Oh no, that wouldn't be another town meeting, but someone would have to exercise the overlay for the site to be zoned that way.
Right. So it's kind of a floating overlay that can be applicable as property owners with the right amount of acreage want to use it.
Okay.
Right.
So similar how it works to now, like now you need to have 15 acres to do ROSC, and you need 10 acres to do a senior ROSC. This would be similar in that we'd be specifying the lot size, and somebody would have to opt to do this instead of a subdivision or a single family. But it would give somebody the option to do that. So it would be sort of a third option or fourth option that people could do depending on the lot size.
Yeah, and then one key difference with this between this and the by right zoning of MBTA communities is that this would be the way that it's currently conceived is by special permit. So the planning board has a lot of like leverage and negotiating power and the ability to deny it if it's really not like in line with what the zoning and the intentions of the zoning. So
Okay, that answers my questions. Yes, thank you.
And one thing I've been thinking about too is it would be great if this kind of, to Addie's point, but taking a little bit further, that it didn't feel like this just comes from the planning board, but this also comes from other town boards and committees who, FinCom thinks we need some more revenue in town, and the Affordable Housing Trust would like to come up with another form of, missing middle housing and create some affordable units. And it would be great if this didn't just feel like it was a planning board thing, that it felt like it was sort of a collective approach to fixing and addressing some of the issues, or a lot of the issues that came up in the master plan. So while we would obviously sponsor it, we would sort of want to be really doing it in partnership with other boards and committees.
So, are we beholden to the spring, fall town meeting cadence?
That's a great
So
question.
we're either doing it this spring or we'll wait until the fall, right?
And the fall may or may not happen.
Correct.
I believe they're planning tomorrow night, the select board is gonna pick a date for fall town meeting and that they're planning that it will happen. There's like a number of things that are out in the universe, that may happen at a fall town
So
meeting.
I guess to Addie's point, and what I was trying to get earlier is trying to get some organic, for lack of a better word,
Mhm.
buy-in from the town. Is there enough runway to generate that for the spring goal? Or do we wait till fall to do the open houses like we did before and sort of spread it out and sort of generate the interest we're hoping for?
I hear that. The downside of fall is that open houses would likely be happening during the summer months again, right? Where people are not paying attention, they're traveling, they're away. I mean, we still got a lot of people attending last year, but of course the stakes felt very high to a lot of people and they made particular effort.
I mean, we could also think of open houses different ways, right? So we could think of, one in the spring that's really more kind of initial outreach and sort of taking the temperature of the town and seeing what people feel. And another, maybe one in the fall. They wouldn't have to be in the summer. We could do one in late September. And then do, 2 hearings. We don't need to do as many hearings as we did for MBTA, and it wouldn't be as intense of a schedule just because I don't think it will be quite as divisive. I hope. I don't know.
Well, the other thing is given the past reaction, I guess, from going through MBTA communities, um, I think we may be better at spreading this out a little bit rather than so soon. That's just my gut feeling on it, but
I think I really like the idea of have warrant articles ever been co-sponsored, or does there always have to be one lead sponsoring entity? Because
I'm assuming for a bylaw amendment, planning board has to lead,
okay,
has to be the single sponsor. Is
okay,
it, does that sound right,
Yeah,
Julie?
that's correct. Well, unless it's a citizen petition, but there's probably a way you could be the sponsor and then have a list of like, you know, co-sponsors. There's probably a way we could put that in the
yeah,
language. It wouldn't be like the official
informally,
process,
you
but
could frame it a different way if it comes across that there's more support from the town than
yeah,
yeah.
just
Well, I do like the idea of it being kind of a multi-entity
yeah.
supported
Mm-hmm.
initiative. I mean, particularly FinCom.
Yeah.
I would agree.
I mean, what's also true is there could be some turnover in this body. And who knows what that will bring, but
no, Sarah's coming back. What? Did you see the eyebrows?
Sarah's very tight-lipped right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, the eyes just went up and down like non-verbal
Okay.
communication.
Yeah.
No, I mean you're right, Stacy. But yeah.
But there could be, there could be value in us socializing this over the spring.
Mhm.
And then there's a chance for an election for the community to sort of further tell us, potentially through a vote,
Yeah, that's a good point.
depending on who candidates are, right?
Mhm.
Kind of that could be directional in some way.
Yep.
You could use town meeting as an opportunity to advertise the idea as well.
Yeah.
Interesting idea.
So
Information.
is there the opportunity to put items on the warrant that are non-binding? I.e. float this in town meeting for the spring, not binding, but as an informational gateway or introduction to what we think we may be doing in the fall.
I think we can do it as a presentation to town meeting without having to have any kind of warrant article associated with it, binding or not.
Mhm.
I think the work we did with MBTA, um, I'm remembering that there was issues with trying to do something that was non-binding, in terms of like getting votes for it, right? But
Is this a question
kind
for
of
Wayne?
socializing it,
Yeah.
just like putting it out there as, here's something that this group of boards is working on because FinCom says we need more money
Throw them under the bus as the saying.
to put the pitch in stark terms.
You forgot to take a step back. Is this a question for Wayne, whether we could do something like this, or is it worth pursuing?
I think it'd be more of a question for town council
Okay,
than for Wayne, but or maybe both of them.
In terms of whether or not we could do a presentation on it, I think that's been done before.
I
well,
would-
that would give us the most immediate feedback.
I thought you were asking something different, Joe. But yeah,
No,
I mean, I think
Yeah, no, so if we did that, and again, yeah, so I'm looking at it from an information standpoint, right? So how does the town get their information? So part of the stuff, they get the warrant, they read through the warrant. If there's something on there that's non-binding, is there the option to do that? To basically say, this is what we're thinking of? And is it worthwhile to pursue something like that? Or are we better off pulling back our cards and going through, the open house procedure, the organic growth and all that whole process and put this off to the fall. The other thing I'm trying to glean out of this is that if we do something at town meeting in the spring, with some prior notifications to the community, it becomes a pretty quick feedback in terms of how the town feels about it with the presentation, and if there's a Q&A question after that, whatever it may be. And I'm just thinking that really will tell you, it becomes a litmus test, if the town is going to buy into this. And again, I'm just exploring different ways to present the information and get feedback, trying to utilize the town meeting, realize that's probably a good source of a start to see where we're at with this. I don't know if it's possible. I'm just throwing the idea out there. That's all.
I would just be hesitant, like, to have some kind of vote associated with a preliminary plan because people get anchored to things. Like, I'd really want to have the
Yeah,
opportunity.
no, we don't have to have a vote, but I think even just from a feedback perspective, from whatever, talking to people afterwards, or if there's the opportunity to ask questions, whatever the case may be, we could probably get a pretty good feel for where the town sits on this with the feedback you get from people. I mean, granted, everyone's not going to be vocal about it, and we're not going to get all the feedback we want, but at least it'll give us some type of insight into where people feel this is possibly going, good, bad, or indifferent.
That there's also Old Home Day for, in terms of maybe even more people going to Old Home Day and,
Yeah,
put a, I don't know,
I
put a
prefer
poker
that.
chip in the one that you like, or like we could,
Yep.
think of interesting ways to engage with the public. I think I worry a little bit about making town meeting longer because it's already so long. I don't know what's gonna be on the article, how long how many
Yeah,
votes
I
are.
wasn't thinking about that, but yeah, you're right.
I don't wanna cause frustration if it's already a long agenda. But definitely agree that it would be great to get the sense of what people are thinking and whether or not they would support this before taking it to town meeting. Or even whether or not, but what would be supported, right? You know, is 6 acres too small? What's the right
Yeah.
unit size and density and all that would be great to get feedback on.
Yep.
Am I hearing sort of a consensus about waiting until the fall? I don't want
I
to.
am for sure, personally.
Say it again, Anne.
I would support waiting till the fall and growing this a little more in depth with feedback and presenting it in the right way and all that's involved with it.
Yeah, I would agree.
As much as I like to get stuff done, I think it would raise the temperature for some folks unnecessarily.
It will.
To try
It'll be in the mosquito, and you'll see some letters in the comment sections about planning board items discussed.
Yeah.
Chris, do you have a
So-
thought, pro or con?
Well, I was preferring the fall, but I was okay with the spring if, but it doesn't seem like it seems like everybody else is good with the fall too. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm good with the fall.
Do you want to take a vote to postpone potential bylaw changes to the fall, or do we need to vote?
I don't think you need to vote unless
I know
you
Julie
actually-
always likes us to
Yeah.
vote. If we don't need to vote, I'm happy not
I
to.
usually do, but I think in this case, like you don't really like I would want to vote if you were going the other way.
Yeah, okay.
Right.
Just
But if anyone disagrees with me and wants to vote, by all means.
that's okay.
Um,
So I guess
okay.
So I think that feels a little bit more comfortable. And I think we should really start thinking hard then about what that outreach needs to be, because I felt like we had a pretty robust process last time, and as painful as it was, we got a lot of feedback. And I think we should figure out how to do that again in a less stressful and panicked way. So maybe we can Julie and I can chat maybe and come up with something for the next meeting to sort of look at what sort of brainstorm. But anyone with suggestions about that?
No, I mean, the big difference here is this is not being forced.
Yeah.
So it's a different take on it completely.
Yep. But it seems like FinCom, Affordable Housing Trust, maybe even, I think there's definitely obviously huge environmental benefits to preserving more contiguous chunks of land and clustering development. So maybe, land use, who else do we need to reach out to get buy-in and they might also have different thoughts about land size, tract sizes too, Julie. I'm thinking,
Yep.
Maybe there's a preference to go with bigger or smaller, or I don't know, but it would be great to hear what they think about that.
Yep. Okay.
And give you a little bit more time to look at the parcel sizes that would be, really impacted by wetlands and other environmental constraints and regulatory constraints. So, and we can. I don't know that I ever want to see a matrix again in my life, but it was really helpful in sort of visualizing the pros and cons of different approaches. Doesn't have to be a matrix, but maybe there's, we can start to think about different. I don't know. This is a whole different beast, but I think some systematic way of evaluating the sizes and locations and things like that. So, and then financial implications of, Addie, I don't know if you've thought about this, but is there a unit yield that's like too small and just wouldn't be financially feasible for anybody? I don't know. And if that's just totally based on the size of the unit that makes it affordable or worth not affordable, capital A, but worth the investment, right? If we're trying to keep unit sizes small, I think we also need to do a bit of a financial analysis of
How many units?
the size of units, all that good stuff.
Yeah, and I think
How do we get that information?
I think we have to think about the fact that there's if we were to go down to 6 acres, a 6 acre approach might manifest very, very differently than a 15-acre approach in terms of the development execution, right? And would we prefer the smaller? Would we prefer the larger? Would we, we've been talking about like what's the minimum lot size, but is there also maybe a maximum lot size?
Right.
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
And then the other piece that's sort of been rattling around in my head is this idea that, well, we've I think some of us, myself, well, I'll say this differently. There are so many things we got so used to talking about because it was required by MBTA that might not have any relevance here. That we can think about, right? Like we can limit the number of bedrooms. What a concept, right? We couldn't do that with MBTA. And if we sort of, I feel like I need a minute to reorient my brain in that way, to be thinking about like, what is it that we would actually want? What outcomes do we want? And how do we enable those outcomes without working within the constraints of what the MBTA law and regs gave us? And also thinking about the unintended consequences that we might be enabling, that we want to think through. How do we ensure that we don't get what we don't want, right? Like just by way of example, the existing, I don't know if it's ROSC or the other one, but that enables these like ribbons of conservation space that don't really mean anything, right? Those things take time to think through, I think, and socialize and get feedback on. And I know that we've already decided we're going to not push this through with this town meeting, but I look forward to a robust conversation around those things.
Would one good starting place be sort of a set of goals? I know we've got like master plan goals. That's probably one way to start, but then what would collective goals be for a cluster ROSC? What are the things that we don't want to see that are happening now, whether it's big unit sizes and really high prices that don't hit the missing middle? Is missing middle the target? What does that mean for unit cost? What does that mean for unit size? What are the things that we want to incentivize and create? And what are the things that we're trying to avoid? Maybe if we start with some brainstorming, some project goals.
Yeah.
Help us.
Yeah, I think the biggest caveat with all this is given the real estate market and how difficult it is to get to the missing middle. The missing middle here is going to be, as much as we want it to be, it's going to be outpriced. Based on where it is.
I think the missing middle in Carlisle is very different than the missing middle for the state.
Yes.
And I think most fundamentally, when you look at this concept that what we're proposing is to go from half a unit per acre to 1 unit per acre, if you, at the most fundamental level, if you take the same square footage and you cut it into 2 units, that is worth more than the single family home. It just is. That you can sell that square footage for more dollars per square feet. Simply that. So I think we can we can achieve the economic feasibility aspect of it if we can get the town to buy into this idea that density should be based on bedrooms, not units, and um, 1 unit per acre versus a half a unit per acre. If you've got the same number of bedrooms, you know, we go back to that same argument that I've made for years, right? But we're not gonna be able to incentivize $500,000 homes here. It's just not really possible without extensive subsidy to be able to deliver that.
So I've thought a lot about assurance technology. Is there a way to incentivize that to be broken up into this? I'm not sure. I mean, according to the tax assessor, there's 29,000 square feet of livable space there. I have no idea how many units that can be converted into, but I would assume more than 10. And I don't think there's a way in our bylaws that anybody could do that.
I think this would enable that. Like some of the language within this is intended to enable something like that because we've got
So on that, from what I could tell, there was no more than 4 units per building.
yeah, but then we can waive that through the special permit
I
process.
thought that was like, I didn't see that. I didn't see a way to get above 4 units. Maybe Julie could speak to that.
I mean, yeah, so these were all discussion points, right, for you guys? Because I was thinking through exactly that scenario, Chris. If we did say 4 units per building and you weren't allowed to waive it, then structures like assurance technology wouldn't necessarily be able to be utilized that they're, reutilized under this bylaw. So I don't remember exactly, but I think I had put it in as kind of like some ideas and then some questions about like what is it you want to do? And I did think I built in a waiver, or I at
Yeah.
least mentioned
Yep.
that you could.
So it says what you built in was there's a footnote to the max number of dwelling units per building that says the town promotes site planning that expresses the rural character of the town and quality design. Accordingly, the maximum number of dwelling units per building may be increased if at the planning board's sole discretion an applicant demonstrates that a higher number of dwelling units per building better retains the rural character of the town or allows reuse of existing structures.
Okay.
And then on page 9, note number 2, the planning board reserves the right to waive the strict enforcement of the standard as follows. Specifically enables the preservation or reuse of an existing structure.
Yeah, for all the other dimensional stuff.
I guess I saw a maximum number of dwelling units per building, 4 in multiple locations. So I couldn't
Yeah,
really
it might be
tease out
worth
that.
like adding the language where we do say 4 that's not in the table. Julie, just note unless waived by planning board pursuant to.
Right, like right up front, so it's clear to someone
Yeah.
reading it, like that they're not necessarily limited by that.
Right.
Yeah, that's good feedback. Thank you.
Well, I do see one spot where it says, in no case will buildings with more than 26 building units be approved. So that's,
That was just stolen from your last discussion when you were like trying to figure this out for MBTA communities and you were like, we have a Benfield and so I just brought some of those ideas forward so you could like talk through them, and figure out if that makes sense for this or if it's a different number or yeah.
yeah, and 26 would encompass the entire assurance technology. So
Yeah, I don't know that there needs to necessarily be a maximum number. I think we were contemplating that in the context of MBTA because it gave us that like anchor of Benfield, like Benfield being the biggest building anyone could conceive of.
Yeah.
Um,
Right. And then
Especially because
also
it was
worry
by
about,
right. That was by
correct,
right. And it was
right,
site plan review. This is
Yeah.
right,
this is special permit.
yeah,
And we might end up, like you said, with a maximum, we might have a maximum lot size. We might get to something like that, in which case it could
mhm.
restrict the upper number of limit of units. So we have a couple ideas for next meeting, like brainstorming project goals and things like that. Julie, are there other sort of points of contention or things that a lot of us were commenting on that you think we should discuss in more detail tonight? Or I feel like I'm looking forward to seeing your maps that take out some of do a little bit more analysis of the sites, and I think that would be
Yep.
really helpful.
Yeah.
Unless you think there's other critical things we should discuss tonight.
So, I mean, I would like to hear from the rest of the planning board. I only heard from 3 people. But the feedback I did get, there was a lot of stuff about like the actual nuts and bolts. Um, and I think that, those are the biggest, richest discussions that you need to have, like the things you've kind of been talking about tonight. Like what is the right base density and what would the maximum number of units be and what, how much lot coverage like would be allowed, right? Like what does the clustering of the site look like? Um, so just working through and then how do we get at that like how do we get at smaller units? Like just all of those things, I think those are the big questions. And most of the feedback I got. So I think I would ask like so I can work on an outreach plan that like, I should know Wednesday morning what the town meeting date for the fall is. So I can work on an outreach plan that kind of gets us to that date. And then I was wondering, like, do you think, do you remember, I think it was probably, was it in 2023? I don't know, 2023 or 2024. I think it was in February. There was like a land use summit
Yeah.
that Ryan convened. Do you think it would be helpful for me to see if we can reinvigorate that idea and kind of have the focus be around like something like this kind of zoning and get people from
I think
different
that's a
boards
great
and
idea.
committees
Yeah.
in the room? Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So I will talk to Ryan about that. And then I was going to ask you like what other kind of deliverables do you want for March? Like can the people who didn't send me feedback commit to sending me some feedback on this draft and then I can like put that together for March and then I can do more mapping analysis and I can do an outreach plan and I can work on a land use summit. Is there anything else?
I think it's worth like trying to structure some conversations, Julie, around some of these key points because it's hard to provide specific language feedback in the absence of a robust conversation about the key elements that we're trying to achieve.
Right. Okay.
And so,
Yeah.
um, maybe what we can do is identify, tonight a handful, maybe less than a handful, like 3 or 4. I don't know. Is that a handful? Depends on how big those pieces are, I guess. Items that we need to think through together, and that we probably need some support around in terms of like how do we visualize this, and what are the potential. So I'll just take as an example, right? Like if we say we're targeting like let's figure out how we get uh smaller units, right? Like, and how do we or how do we talk about a unit size that seems to make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And what is that giving us? And what is the typical like if we're focused on this less than 1850 square feet, like what does that look like from the standpoint of a price point in the marketplace? And some of the visualizations and data points that can help inform a conversation, I think
Mm-hmm.
would be helpful to the board for you and Noel to bring forth and structure our conversation around.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, and then it can also be leveraged for communicating with the community as well.
Right, right.
Mhm.
So, do we want to talk about let's like identify a couple of key factors that we need to have a robust conversation around? I mean, unit size, I think, is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Um,
building coverage, lot coverage, how much buildable area, how much open
Right.
space,
right. How much
essentially how
clustering?
clustered
Yeah, how
and
clustered. Right.
that's also going to necessitate, we're going to need to work through some of those, and what does that look like on a certain lot size, and does it give us the size buildings, unit sizes that we intend?
And also the protected open space
Yeah.
that you want to achieve.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the flip side, right? Yeah.
So
Is
these developments viewed as associations or private individual ownership of the units with, associated lots, et cetera? How do we see this from
The idea that the lot would have to stay the lot. It can't be further divided. So once it gets approved under this special permit for the site plan and the specific commitments that it makes to the development, it can't then be further divided. So it would have to be an association of some sort, whether it's a owner of the property that and the units are for lease for rent, or an owners association with condominiumized ownership units.
Yeah, no, I understand. Just looking at this from I guess, a legal perspective, how this plays out from, to meet the missing middle, how does that end up becoming a framework for people to own something there?
Yeah.
I'm curious, are there any ways to actually incentivize rental units? Like, or is like, nope, the market decides that stuff. And there's, I'm just thinking of there are any number of families in town that have to move out of their house for 4 months because their house is getting worked on, or their family circumstances are such that they need something temporary, or plenty of people aren't ready to buy, but workforce housing, rental units could be valuable for some of those folks. But I don't know what the legal, if there's anything that can be done. I'm guessing probably not through zoning.
I'm just trying to think of it. You can't I don't think zoning can address what's the term, Julie?
Tenancy
Tenancy, right.
type. Yeah, zoning is not really supposed to
Okay.
restrict that.
But ADUs have to be under common ownership, and there may be a way to structure some of the additional density that is granted for smaller units as ADUs.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Can't you only have one ADU per
Yeah.
For the protected use
for the
ADU.
protected use? Okay, true.
Right.
Um, 900 square feet's a tough family size unit, though. You're lucky to get 2 bedrooms in that.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, maybe something to talk about. I don't know if
Yeah.
that, is of interest to others, but yeah, just putting it out there.
Joe, just so you know, the homeowners association piece is 512A 11.5. Boy, then
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. I was trying to embed it originally, and then it ended up being so different. I feel like it should just be a different section. Um,
just the note, the yeah,
yeah,
it's crazy.
no, I'll fix that. I think it was probably going to get chucked anyway by somebody. So
What was the?
just the 12A piece of it. Like, yeah.
Oh, okay. What is that from? Like, what is?
Oh, it's just because 5.12 is ROSC. And so I thought it would be like,
Oh,
when
got
I
it.
originally was like thinking this would be like largely ROSC language with just a few tweaks.
Mhm.
And then I just like went a completely different direction. So it doesn't really make sense anymore anyway. It's ROSC in the sense that it is clustering without creating lots, right? Like
Right.
conservation cluster is like creating lots, individual lots for each unit. And
Yeah.
ROSC doesn't, right?
Right.
So
So it's more like Woodward Village than it is like
Hanover Hill.
right.
correct. Or like the 75 West Street.
75
Mhm.
West.
Yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
So the other really critical one I think we need to talk about is density and density bonus and what you get the 50% density bonus for.
Right. Do you guys want me to screen share that section? All right, I will.
Well, I just think it's one of those. It's one of the, it's in the handful, right, of things we need additional support
Yeah.
on for people to think
It
about.
Yeah, I
is,
don't know
yeah.
that we need to look at the document, but we can.
So, do others think there's something else? Any other kind of, sort of critical factors that we need support to have a robust conversation around? So I think what we've identified so far is density and density bonus, unit size, lot coverage, and clustering, and by extension, the protected open space
Yeah.
aspect of it. Those seem like the critical pieces, right?
Yeah.
They are, and they all interrelate.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And did you mention parcel size?
Yes.
Oh,
You did,
yeah,
okay.
I didn't mention that in my handful, but that's another one.
I
Yeah.
think parcel size, yeah. Because I think the other thing I was thinking about in the context of collectively coming up with something that the other boards and committees would support would be, there's been that mention of we need 100 more units or something, right? So how do we can we get something that, based on the number of ADUs we sort of anticipate every year, which has been a lot fewer for several reasons than we expected. In this, if you add those two together, do we somehow get to maybe about 100 units? Is there a way to is there a logic in there to enable
Mhm.
the number of units that FinCom thinks we need?
Right.
I don't know if that's a way to approach it, but what might be one way to think about it. Because
Yeah,
I
and I
think the
think
question
that,
will come up is how many units could this enable over time?
Mhm.
I think
and yeah,
that's
the time horizon matters too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
hmm.
I think that's a good start, though. I think we've got a good maybe 5 major topics to dive into. Would a financial analysis be one of them? I think that's kind of like after the fact,
Yeah, that.
sort of a
I mean,
separate.
I can, the financial analysis, you mean in terms of feasibility? And
Yeah.
yeah, I can contribute to the conversation without running actual numbers
Yeah.
in a coherent manner. I think that will be helpful.
Okay.
But I think ultimately we should definitely run actual numbers.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
um, one of the things that I wonder about that kind of runs through all of these sort of nexus points is when you're calculating density. So forget what you know about MBTA communities. When you're calculating density allowed on site, are you including the land on which you cannot build because it's wetland? So in other words, if you have a 10-acre parcel
Mhm.
and 9 acres of it is wetland, do you then have the rights to potentially 20 units on 1 acre because of, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, I don't know that this contemplates that in a meaningful way, right?
No, it doesn't. Yeah, that's a great thing to think through.
Have you seen anything like that in any of the other cluster bylaws you've looked at, Julie?
I mean, most towns that I've seen like still do the whole proof plan, where you prove what you can get by right with a subdivision, and each lot has to have a certain amount of upland, right? According to zoning. And then based on that's like your base density, right? And then for anything above that, you have to provide affordability or whatever.
Right.
Um, that's kind of like the standard model that I've seen in the last couple decades.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that there isn't something out there that a town has recently done that's like a little bit less futile, I guess. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like that's like a whole step that I don't know like gets you much, but
Yeah, I mean, I can see that it establishes a baseline from the standpoint of all the factor. It puts the onus on the developer to
Mhm.
say what the minimum, what the what parcels are. I'm not articulate tonight. I'm sorry. Puts the onus on the developer to establish what's the feasible zoning for a parcel or feasible density for a parcel given its constraints before proposing something that is um,
right.
pursuant to the cluster bylaw. So it feels like extra work and futile because you're never going to build that thing. But in order to figure out what you have the right to, you have to show what you
Right.
could do
Mhm.
alternatively. And that may actually be part of what can win the town over for
Mhm.
something like this because it could potentially show like the alternative here is clear cutting for
Mhm. Right.
10 acres and this is what so maybe there's a reason why that's a popular way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I get why it exists. It's just Like, is that how we want to get there?
It may not be how we want to get there in terms of, the base density and everything above that being, you need to have affordable and you need to do this, and you need to do that, you need to do that. But it could at least, um, enable a whole lot less structure in the language of the bylaw itself around what counts and what doesn't towards your density calculation.
Right. I mean, it is a consistent methodology that could be applied across like many different sites, right? So it gives like it gives you a consistent approach to use. The other thing that it would do, like I could tell you right off the bat, is it would rule out a bunch of the sites that have like some scattered wetlands, right? They might have like a developable portion, but like with a lot of wetlands or scattered wetlands, so that like an actual standard subdivision plan wouldn't really work. So, and if that's like where you're starting from, that would rule out probably a bunch more lots. Like I was looking at them today, you know, and there were some that were obviously covered in wetlands that would need to be removed. And then there were others that were like, well, a creative developer could, but if they can't actually prove a by right subdivision,
Yeah.
and that's the gating,
And is it because of the subdivision road?
So the road would take up a lot of the land, but then also just being able to create a number of lots that would be worthwhile that would have the right amount of upland area, right? The minimum
Yeah.
like the minimum acreage, like the 2 acre, right, base zoning, and then whatever the bylaw requires that needs to be outside of resource areas, right? And with the, if you have to do the radius and
Yeah.
Mhm.
The
You know,
ellipse.
so I mean it's an interesting exercise. It could be really informative for sure to to think through that step. Um,
Yeah, and maybe I guess I'm worried that it would actually eliminate many, many more parcels than you might think, just because what parcels are left that are undeveloped in Carlisle are the ones that are
hard to
pretty
develop.
problematic,
Right,
right?
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
There might be some comfort to some people to that though, right? If it's a parcel with a lot of wetlands on it, the amount of area that you have for nitrogen loading is limited. Maybe that's not a bad thing. I mean, I know we're trying to encourage missing middle housing, but maybe there's a balance here somewhere, right? Another thought that I had, and I don't know if this is possible with zoning either, but in terms of Addie, to your point of using bedrooms as a limit, not necessarily just units. If we could use that, how many bedrooms could you get if you were to do a typical subdivision and restrict the number of bedrooms that you could have in a clustered RSC to that number or some percentage of that number would kind of give Board of Health, maybe some other people, some comfort in terms of the amount of development happening. So,
I think you can use wetlands as nitrogen loading, though.
can you? You can use the land. You can use the land. You just
Yeah.
can't actually. You can't put septic near them, but you can use it for nitrogen loading. You just can't actually build that septic
Right.
because there's no space.
Right. But I do
So-
think sorry, go ahead, Stacey.
Well, just listening to these different approaches, it sounds like when we have the really in-depth conversation about it, it'd be good to I'm so visual that I want show me a parcel
Yeah.
that has, here's wetland and wetland and wetland, and here's what it would yield with these different ways of calculating. Because it sounds like that could create or it sounds like there will be some, maybe significant variation depending on how we do it.
Yeah.
And like, I think I'm tracking you guys' discussion, right? But then I also like, yeah, it'll be helpful for me to have some
Definitely.
visuals to go along with
Take some example parcels.
what each of them, would
Yeah.
do and not do for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
You circulated earlier today, Julie, with the different parcel sizes was very helpful. And then adding in the constraints layers to all of the environmental constraints. To the point, some of the parcels become quite difficult to develop.
Yeah, I was thinking about the ones that aren't necessarily like a ton of wetlands, because like to Sarah's point, like maybe those really shouldn't be developed anyway. It's more just the ones that have like a wetland chain running through, or like they would just be hard to configure
Mhm.
around in a way that would result in anything.
I mean,
anything
the
over.
the Concord Street one that had been a 40B is a perfect example of that.
Mhm.
Yeah. Right.
With its vernal pools and its challenging topography and its wetland
Challenging
interconnection,
access. Yeah.
access issues. But by the same token, there was we considered it for MBTA communities because you could get, what did we end up with that Joe Pesnola put together? It was not an insignificant number of units if you densified it and
Mhm.
clustered them in a
Mhm.
particular way.
So
They-
do we need to consider stringing parcels together to meet that minimum also?
Meaning somebody could buy multiple parcels, put them together, and then do it.
Get your 6 acres, whatever, and et cetera.
Well, we can put a cap, can't we, Julie, since it's not MBTA?
That's a great question. Let me write that down for town council. Because it with the special permit and the fact that this is an MBTA, maybe you could, yeah.
I mean, we had a cap on the number of special permit ADUs.
You did,
Yeah.
yeah, but that was dating back to the 80s. Or well, no, maybe I'm getting that wrong. Maybe that was a more recent thing. But anyway, it like times have changed, and so the landscape has changed a little bit around zoning. So I'll just note that for town council. Um, to be honest, like when I was looking at the mapping earlier today, I was initially, after reviewing some of it, I was thinking maybe 6 acres might be a little small. But that was just my like initial kind of
Mhm.
my gut reaction to like the mapping analysis.
Okay, so I think we have a good plan of action for like sort of in-depth subject areas that we need to discuss and make decisions on. Julie's gonna work on an outreach plan, and we can work on project goals and the things we want to achieve and the things we want to avoid for the next meeting. We do have a lot left on our agenda for tonight. So unless anybody has any pressing things, we might want to move on and continue this discussion in March.
Do it.
Okay, sounds good. All right.
Sarah, actually, really quick, I was going to ask you, did
Yeah.
you want to take, I no one's hands are raised, but we do have a couple members of the public here, and I didn't know if you wanted to have any public comment for any of these.
I was looking for hands too, but we can certainly see, I do see two or three members of the public here. If anyone has a comment about the cluster bylaws that we've been talking about, if members of the public would like to ask a question or make a comment.
Yeah, this is Nancy Hartle. The only comment I have is, did you check, or does it matter? I think the state CR does not allow septic systems and such in the protected area. So open space, I believe, and Julie can check this, I don't believe the state allows those structures in what they consider a CR. So that would be the only comment you might want to check.
Okay.
Anyone else from the public?
Guess since you guys are asking, Caleb Cochran, 683 East Street. I was wondering, I was gonna just email Julie after, but I might as well ask now. You weren't potentially going to use this zoning as part of the strategy for the Bog House, right? Like I know you're going to talk about the Bog House in a bit, but this was never going to be one of the potential options for the Bog House.
No, I think that's too small of a parcel. We're gonna have to get there some other way.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
But good question. And a good example of why we would want to have some sort of way to permit existing historic structures or existing structures to be developed and allow the planning board some leniency around structure sizes and other things like that. Okay. Julie, do you want to keep going with the other business? You
Sure,
had the
yeah.
PBL amendment on there. Do we need to discuss that?
Yeah, so I just wanted to give you a heads up about that. The zoning board has recently received an opinion from town council that the section 6.3 of the zoning bylaw goes beyond what state law allows the town to regulate in terms of special permits for non-conforming structures and uses. So town council has recommended that we address that at a near future town meeting. I have asked Ethan to put together some language that would help us rectify that situation. The zoning board may be discussing it on March 2nd if they decide to go ahead with their meeting that night. And then Eric couldn't make tonight's meeting. He's the chair of the zoning board, but he did say he would talk to you about it at your next meeting. And so I did put a placeholder on the warrant just because the warrant closes tomorrow. So I just to cover that base, I put a placeholder in case you guys decide that you do want to take it up for annual town meeting. So more on that TBD.
And so that would be something we would take up, not ZBA.
Well, so yeah, I mean, if you wanted to, otherwise they could submit it as a citizen petition. But I mean, it's a little cleaner. Like if you agree,
If
it's
we
a
do.
good thing to do. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna have to have the hearing process and all that. So yeah. And then I did want to also alert you that the GIS program funding, there was a warrant article, I think it was for FY25 through FY27, so it authorized $45,000 of funds for the GIS program to be spent on hardware and software and some consultant support. So that funding is going to be used to cover the known costs of our GIS software, like our Axis GIS for this year, and then it's going to be built into the Ryan's going to work to build it into the FY28 operating budget. And so I just am giving you a heads up that next annual town meeting, 2027, we'll need to have another warrant, GIS funding warrant, just for like additional money beyond the known costs. Like if we want to continue to expand the program, or if there's any other software and hardware things that come up or trainings that are needed, we would put a request on the
And
annual town meeting next year.
Are other towns or other entities in town hall who want to add data into the GIS system? I assume they're in charge of adding their own data, and so right now
Not yet.
you guys are okay. So that's, I think,
Yeah.
something else we should discuss is once it gets to a certain point, other town, like the assessor's office, they should be responsible of
Yeah, so
to
the
add the
assessor's office-
data to the GIS. That shouldn't fall all on planning board.
Yeah, so the assessors actually, they are the only other entity that does
Yeah,
pay
that's why
for some of this.
Yeah.
No, they do, their stuff is managed.
Yeah.
It's more like anything we want to do with DPW or conservation
Yeah.
or and those layers are still like in process and being
Yeah.
created and worked on, and the septics, all of that stuff is right
And
now.
maybe that's
we're-
another topic for if we do a land use summit, like this should be sort of, everybody should be contributing to the data at some point.
Well, so Julie, didn't the finance committee say that they wouldn't really object to if we just rolled it into our budget every year?
So that is the plan moving forward, is that the known expenses will be built into the operating budget, right? So the warrant article is really to cover like expanding the program and some unknown expenses that might come up. Like as new staff are coming to town hall, as we're training staff in different departments to be able to update their own data and manage their own systems. But I also think it would be wise for Carlisle to look into like shared services, and I've talked to Ryan about this, maybe even joining with Concord, or just figuring out how to extend our contract with our GIS consultant, none of this would exist without him, honestly. Like, I do a lot of the coordinating of his efforts with other town departments, right? Because he is in it and can do it, like I can't. I don't have the bandwidth or the knowledge that he has. So I've been thinking through some of these things and talking to Ryan about them just to try to make sure that the program sustains itself. But yeah. So right now I don't have a lot of other departments like asking for things that are not already known about, right? They're all the things that we've been building the last couple of years are still, a lot of them are still in process, like the fire department layers and the health data, that's all still like in process, right? So there's nothing new, but a lot of the plans that exist that are being created, like the MVP report, have a lot of new things in them, right? That'll at some point, some of them are analysis of the layers that we're building now, right? To like take things to like the next level of understanding. And then some of them are kind of like new ideas. So yeah, I don't know. Should I keep going?
Yep, MVP.
Okay, so I'll segue into MVP since that's the next thing on the agenda. And I did just mention the Climate Resilient Carlisle report. So the MVP Core Committee, it's an entity of the planning board. I believe it was established in some form in 2020 before I worked for the town, and then I kind of took over. It should have always been an open meeting law committee. It's only recently been an open meeting law committee, like since I discovered that a few years ago. It is awkward. It is a committee that is mostly staff. It's the way that it's structured because we were like retrofitting it to like make it an open meeting law committee, but it's like mostly staff. And then the way we structured it was like the voting member would be an elected or appointed board member if an elected or appointed board member is present in the room. Otherwise, the voting member is the staff person. We struggle every meeting to get a quorum. And we're at the phase now where kind of like the policy's been set, the report's been issued, right? And we want to start implementing. And the core committee, they didn't officially vote on this because I forgot to have them officially vote on it, but we did come to an agreement that we would like to be sunset at some point so that we can just focus on implementation. And the goal would be we would check in. I mean, it's mostly staff, but there are some volunteers that come to every meeting and have been very active in it. And so we would check in and continue to loop them into all of the things that we're doing. So it's mainly just to streamline and make implementation easier, and then take the need for like we post agendas, we do minutes, and it's mostly a staff meeting. And then we also do not have any public attendance ever. So that is something that the MVP Core Committee would like. They have another meeting at the end of February, which could be their last meeting, if this board agrees to sunset them. Yeah, and then in terms of implementation, there are a couple of recommendations in the report that deal directly with one of them's indirectly related to the Historical Commission's demolition review bylaw. And so I've been actually working with Chrissy and Ben on trying to like incorporate some language or propose some language from the MVP core committee to historical commission that they might put in their bylaw. And then there are some recommendations that directly relate to the wetlands bylaw. And so because the CONSCOM is currently working on a wetlands bylaw, there's a little group of staff that are on the MVP core committee that are working to try to incorporate some of the ideas from the Climate Resilient Carlisle report into the wetlands bylaw as well. So those are two kind of they're not necessarily the highest priorities, but they kind of rose to the top because those efforts are already underway. And MVP core committee wanted to strike while the iron is hot and try to get some of these ideas incorporated if possible. So that's the implementation piece and the sunset request.
And I guess my question is because it sounds like the committee is mostly staff, I just want to make sure that like the implementation doesn't get lost because so much great work has been done. So who would that fall to you to really kind of track that, or how do we not lose all the good
Right.
ideas that were generated?
So that's a great question, Sarah. And it's on me right now, and I'm the chair of the committee right now because this is an entity of the planning board.
Mm-hmm.
It is probably far better suited to be with our sustainability coordinator, or even like we work as a team, but like in terms of like keeping track and like so many of the ideas are in her wheelhouse, that it would, I just haven't been able to fully kind of offload it because it's an entity of the planning board.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so
And then my question is, in the absence of a committee, how does that get decided?
how does which piece of it get decided?
Who takes
Who
charge of
implements?
implementation, whether it falls to sustainability or you, or
Yeah, so
how does the work get delegated
Yeah.
for implementation?
that's a great question. So we have an implementation matrix that identifies like a champion entity and like
Mhm.
supporting entities. And so it would basically like the way that I see it happening for planning board is anything that's in it that's like where the planning board's listed as a lead entity or a supporting entity, I put it in your work plan, and then you guys can decide if you want to prioritize it.
Mhm.
And then we like staff kind of reach out and kind of try to figure it out amongst ourselves and work with the board, right? And so I see that it working that way for like the other recommendations,
Mhm.
like different staff would take them to the boards and committees they support. And kind of like we do with master plan, like here are all the master plan recommendations that list the planning board, right? Here are the housing plan recommendations that list the planning board. Here's the climate resilient Carlisle, right? And then you guys decide like what your priorities are.
Question, does the select board have they reviewed it? Have they approved it?
Yeah. So
Okay, great.
they didn't like they didn't fully like support it like you guys did, but Kate Reed was the select board member who was on the MVP core committee. And she was very active in it the whole year. You're the planning board, I believe, is the only entity that like actually voted on it because simply because it's in kind of in your jurisdiction because of the way the committee was created. But that's a great question.
I mean, we know we'll, have the accountability follow through implementation of the pieces with our name on it. I'm wondering if, for the other entities involved, we can't say, do it to them, right? We can't compel action from other groups. We would have to just rely on the various staff to raise it and be a champion for it with the other entities.
Yeah, and
Whose
this is
names
like
are on
part
it.
of the awkwardness of it all because like
Mhm.
in our last few meetings, I mean, like since Kate moved, like there hasn't been a single elected official in any of these meetings, which is like it's
I
just
see.
awkward for us because we're like
Sure.
we have a plan and we're creating policy and ideas and recommendations and like we're just a group of staff mostly. So just figuring out kind of like how everything's gonna go up and then come back down, right? Funnel back down and be implemented and like who's accountable to who. Um, it's a little tricky. So I'll talk to the core committee about that again. Like we've been kind of grappling with like the same questions of like how do we make sure this happens from here on out. But yeah, I'll talk to the core committee about it again and see if we can kind of like figure it out. I mean, I think like Ryan's been sitting in for the select board and like intends to take, the recommendations that involve the select board and kind of put them in their, like how he does with their goals and their work plan and like, have things filter back down. But we don't have a lot of authority otherwise.
Would there be more authority if the select board formally voted on it?
Yeah, maybe
Like, would
that's
that
something
create
that I need
more
to do.
authority?
Yeah. Let me talk to Ryan about that. It's not something that he's ever suggested that I'm remembering anyway, but maybe that's something he just never thought of.
Well, couldn't we vote to, are we going to vote to sunset it or no, or? I thought we were gonna vote to sunset it.
Well, I mean, we can.
I was
It sounds
actually
like
hoping Christina would be here tonight to like
okay.
maybe help with this conversation because she's one of the volunteers who's been extremely active in this, and has been at all of our meetings and has some thoughts about implementation and all of these questions. But
So, I mean, I think if the committee doesn't want, or it doesn't want to keep going, I think we could vote to sunset it, but we think we want to keep thinking about implementation and how best to try to encourage that where we can. And I'm happy to talk to Ryan too, if that's at all helpful. Maybe just kind of like the master plan implementation. It's still living on, we're still doing it. And, how do we just keep it on the top of people's minds? So, so are people okay voting on that tonight?
Yep.
Anyone see any reason not to? Okay, does anyone want to make a motion?
Motion to sunset the, oh my God, the committee.
MCP core committee.
Thank you.
Second.
Roll call vote, please, starting with Chris.
No, Dwight,
With Dwight, sorry, thank you.
Dume, aye.
Kegasai,
Brady, aye.
Yeshua.
Lennon and I.
Smith, aye.
Okay, thank you. And I will follow up on the big questions about implementation and how we make sure things happen, and whether the select board should vote. I think that's a good idea. So. All right, moving along. Do you guys want to talk about the summary of the YIMBY legislation, or just like, I didn't know if there was anything in it that, or should I move on to the Bog House?
Why don't we come back to the legislation next time and move on to the Bog House?
Sure. Yeah, so I had given you guys like a little update a couple months ago, I think it was. And I have an update now, but it's like I don't want to like go into all the details if you don't want me to like.
Is there anything that you need action on? Or
so I mean,
can I make a suggestion, Julie?
Yeah, please.
I think it's worth giving the planning board the update that you gave the CPC, since that's going to be, since we voted to recommend the request for the CPA warrant article. So
yeah, okay, that's good. Thank you for that, for keeping me on track. I was just like, I've given this presentation so many times. I'm like, who hasn't heard it yet? All right, so just 1 second. Let me get this. I have so many windows open. I'm gonna just close some of them. That way I can not have it freeze. All right, so this is the presentation that John Ballantyne and I gave to the CPC last Wednesday. you guys, if you're aware of the project goals, this slide hasn't changed since the last time I spoke with you about it. So I will just keep going unless you want me to dwell on this. Um, we know I've gone over what we've learned, so I'll kind of just like start with this column here, which is what I'm working on right now. So we have the Housing Trust has authorized funds for a housing consultant. She's really kind of like the foremost housing expert in this area and has already been very helpful. And then I am like this close to having a contract signed with DNAP Architects for the schematic design phase of their work. And I'm working on additional scope with niche engineering because based on some new information and new staff and the availability of more money, we are expanding the wetlands delineation and the topo survey. And then at some point in the early spring, hope to get the wetlands delineation confirmed by the Conservation Commission. So that all costs money. The Housing Trust has authorized $35,000. I'm still trying to pin down a piece of it, so I don't know if that's the right number, but not TBD on that. And then let me just go to the next slide really quick. The Housing Trust has made a request to the CPC for $200,000 of additional funding beyond. So there's the thing I just showed you is Housing Trust funding that they've already authorized for those 3 contracts. And then there's additional funding they're requesting from annual town meeting. And some of these things are pinned down and some of them are not. And I do need to update this based on some information I got in the last couple days and some feedback from the CPC. But basically, what I want to try to achieve in 2026 is like pinning down the site plan and the schematic design so that we know like what is the land area that we want to propose to carve out from Article 97, and then on the flip side of that, like what might the replacement land be? When I left off with you guys last time, there was an idea that we might be able to get a waiver from providing replacement land. Town council thinks that's a total long shot, just based on their legal understanding of how the wording in the waiver clause is actually applied. And just their experience with Article 97 and the EEA. So they think that's a long shot. So the other thing that is interesting about that I learned recently is that if we are granted a waiver, we might not know until the project is about to start. Like until EEA can actually see it all coming together. So I think either way, we have to have the replacement land conversation. So the request to town meeting includes $36,000 for like permitting. So assuming that like DNAP Architects and the engineer, Niche Engineering, would like actually do the design and then also help take this through local permitting. I had them scope out the permitting piece, and so the DNAP gave me a price of $36,000 to do the permitting. The site plan and permitting piece with Niche, I'm still trying to pin down some initial numbers I've gotten. You know, everything has a price and there's a lot of things they need to do. But I'm really trying to get the number to understand what's behind the numbers they've given me, I guess. Let's just say that. And then I'm probably going to seek a second quote from our other house doctor engineering firm. We've added in $15,000 for additional housing consultant work. Our current contract is 15 grand, so we just figured like if we burn through that and we need more, just that's the number. I spoke to town council. They think 15 to 20 for legal is probably more than we need, but based on some other towns that have recently gone through Article 97 and some of the issues they've encountered, there's a definite potential that the legal costs will get driven up. This is low. My understanding is that the appraisals don't cost that much, but the survey work definitely will. So I need to increase that. And then I had a pretty robust contingency in here for unknowns, just because I'm doing this without the benefit of a town engineer helping me. And I'm really relying a lot on like the consultants to kind of like tell me what I don't know. Like I'm trying to ensure that they understand the scope, right, of the project and the goals of the project, but also like include things in their scopes that like I am maybe not thinking of because I don't do this every day. So trying to walk that line. So that's where we're at right now. And if all of these things happen in 2026, which I feel like is maybe aggressive, but I'm told it's feasible, then at fall town meeting, we'd have a few things that would need to happen. So fall town meeting would need to authorize basically both components of the land swap. And then there may be an additional request for funds from CPA, if that's a possibility. And then the other big question I left off with you guys last time was whether we could permit the site via a friendly 40B or if we should try to like create some local zoning that would entitle the site for multifamily housing. And the housing consultant thinks that the friendly 40B is the right route to do this. And that like all the documentation of like, you know, the survey of the land, the votes of town meeting, the intent, right, would be enough to submit to the state to get a project eligibility letter, which is it's one of the early steps of any 40B process, right? Is you submit a bunch of documentation to the state and then they come out to the site, you know, and then if they agree with everything that's been submitted, they will issue a project eligibility letter, and then you can use the comprehensive permit statute for your permitting process. So, what's important to note about the friendly 40B process, right, is that it's led by the zoning board and it would include input from other boards and committees, but it doesn't obviate the need for a CONSCOM hearing or a Board of Health approval, right? Because no 40B gets around the Wetlands Protection Act or Title V, right? So those processes still happen. And then like in terms of like the friendly part of this, like my understanding is that typically that means that these projects would also strive to comply with local regulations to the best ability possible, right? So in the Board of Health approval and the CONSCOM hearing, that like the project would try to be mindful of, you know, local wetlands buffers and Board of Health septic design flows. So more on that, but that's my initial kind of understanding of how this works.
Julie,
So
this is great. Thank you for this update. I'm curious what the conversation is so far about what land you might exchange with, or for the Article 97 piece.
It really hasn't happened. The conversation really hasn't started yet.
Okay.
Like, you know, at least that I've been involved in. The site that I have heard like from multiple different people is like, we'll just give them like a portion of the Conant land, but the land has to be equal ecological and financial value. So like, I'm not, you know, like it'll be a significant effort with EEA, right? Having them come out, having them look at sites, having them, you know, agree to different scenarios.
Yeah.
And like town council hasn't really had much luck getting in touch with them. So I'm like a little bit hesitant to, like when I say like I hope these things can all happen in 2026, I'm just thinking there's only so much that we can control.
Yeah.
Right. And if the state is involved, and they will be in like any capacity, like there's just no guarantees. But yeah. So I don't know why my hand is raised. I must have done that by accident. I'm trying to unraise it. Like the
You were
button.
trying to get your own attention.
The buttons on Zoom, I don't know if you all are experiencing this, but like they're new to me as of today. Like all of the many different things are moved around. So like I don't even know how to do this.
Sometimes when you do a hand motion,
Oh,
emoji.
that is what happened, probably, right? I can't figure out how to lower my hand, but anyway. So those are the highlights. I'm working to pin down the request, the CPA funding request a little bit more. Yeah.
And I assume it will be potentially be asked to support this CBA request?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yep. And I probably should say also, like, so I've given this presentation, a version of this presentation to Conservation Commission, the Select Board, the Housing Trust. Sorry, not the Housing Trust yet, the HISCOM. Housing Trust members have been involved in all these meetings and have seen it, but I'm going to talk to them directly Thursday night. CPC. So I'm trying to like kind of keep everyone in the loop as things move along. So
Great, thank you.
sure.
Next thing we have our minutes from the January meeting.
Yep, let me just share them. So I did not get any amendments ahead of time. So if anyone has any, just feel free to shout them out. Let me see if I can make this a little. Can you guys see this okay? Okay. So we go through page 1. And then on to page 2.
Page 2, I did have a comment.
Okay. Where on?
Right on the minutes. Mr. Gegas moved to approve the meeting minutes as amended, which is interesting and a little funny because on the first page it mentions how I was absent.
Okay. Were you absent?
I was.
Great. So I'll just double check who did that.
And then I had one higher up in the first paragraph. It says, the requirements stem largely from the previous use of garbage disposal, blah, 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 which had initially been permitted, but was now being reconsidered in light of new evaluations. I would say in light of new Board of Health regulations.
Okay. In light of new. Okay. Anyone else? All right, I'll move on to page 3. And on to page 4. Or not sure why they're. All right, and I guess that's it. So if anyone else has anything or nothing else.
Do you have a motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
All right, thank you.
Okay, roll call vote, please, starting with Dwight.
Gegas, aye.
Brady, I.
Sure.
Len and I.
Okay. Okay, invoices. Julie, do you want to share screen for any of these?
Yeah, sorry, let me just grab them. There are 2, I believe. Just okay, you have. Hold on, I gotta actually share my screen, don't I? You have an invoice from Niche for work they did witnessing the paving at Woodward Village, and we did get a field report from them for this, and we do have funds to cover it. And this is for $1,577.71, and it would come out of the 53G account for the Woodward Village project. So that 53G account is funded by the developer for the town's peer review engineering. So this is not town money. So there's that one. And then let me grab the other one. I have an invoice from our GIS consultant. He's been doing a lot for the town. So just these, I actually asked him to break these down a little bit more specifically for me. Just mainly, well, for a lot of reasons, but anyway, to just give you an idea of like what he's been working on. So he's continuing to work on digitizing our septic as-built plans, which contributes to the work that Horsley Witten is doing for our subsurface hydrogeology mapping project. He's been coordinating, I don't know if you all remember the town meeting vote to authorize funding for the police and fire to get a new dispatch system. But he's been coordinating like the base mapping that dispatch is going to use, which is, it's a pretty incredible, just, I don't know, the whole thing. I've been involved in some of the conversations and it's very interesting. He's been working on a fire department analysis. He's going to help us coordinate, like we have a contract with Nearmap and we're going to get that up and running, and he's helping coordinate that. I'm trying to think, there's like so many things. Oh, every year when our Esri, our software licenses like need to be renewed, I have him like make sure that like we're getting what we should be getting, and like the old version of the software goes away next month, and so we're all migrating, which is why I've been like forcing myself to learn the new version, because like pretty soon I don't really have a choice. And so he's been helping not just me with the migration to the new software, but also our assessor. So we've been having meetings about that. So there's just a lot going on. And I'm glad he invoiced, because he's like notoriously bad at invoicing for his work. So this is $3,336.25. It comes out of his current contract, which is paid. It's an ARPA funded contract, actually.
So, quick question. So you mentioned a new software, and I was wondering if that is going to affect our user experience at all, or much, or a lot.
So the new GIS, like the ArcGIS Pro software, it's like what we do on the back end. So what you're using for Axis GIS is a completely separate, and it's a completely separate consultant. It's an online hosted mapping system, completely different than what we do on the back end. Although the consultants integrate all the things, right? But no, it will not impact your experience.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So those are the invoices.
Okay, other comments or questions? Or a motion to approve and authorize the town planner to sign?
So moved.
Second,
Roll call vote, please, starting with Dwight.
May I?
Gegas, aye.
Grady, aye.
Yeshua.
All right, thank you guys.
Len and I.
Good eye.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Unintentional pause.
I took a Joe length pause.
Okay, liaison reports. I have just a little bit from historical. We decided to also wait on the demo review and delay bylaw just to figure out how to expand the historic inventory to get a little bit more data, or to get a lot more data, to sort of give people some more facts to base their decision on. So just so you know, I don't know if it'll be fall. We were hoping for maybe CPC funding for that, because we have no funding, but we can't use CPC funding for that. So trying to figure out how to get some funding for whether it's grant or otherwise for consultant help to expand the historic properties inventory that was done in apparently 2010, as I found out earlier tonight. So I'm teasing a little bit, but yeah, so that's where we are on that. So
I would say, Sarah, I learned from that meeting, which I didn't realize, is that the reason the inventory is outdated is because it was stopped, right? Like the work effort to create the inventory was stopped.
Mhm. Oh,
I hadn't realized that was the reason. I thought like it was a complete effort, and then new people thought like it was missing a bunch of things.
it was stopped by who? Like, I didn't know
No,
that.
I don't know. That's just what I took away from the meeting was that it was just never completed. So maybe I'm getting that wrong, but
No,
like,
this was 2010 was way before my time. I did
yeah.
not know that. That's interesting.
Well, I could be getting it wrong, but that's what I thought I heard from that meeting, and I was like, oh, that's the reason that people think it's incomplete is not because it was like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
I had a different understanding before that meeting.
yeah, yeah. So anyways, that's where that is. So that will not be on the Springtown meeting. Any others?
I have a quick, I can just do the CPC update. So the items we voted to approve were for, and again, this is the CPC votes to approve applications to be brought to town meeting for CPA funding. We have the Gleason Public Library ask for another, it says 300 to 500,000, but I think it was 500,000 that we approved. It was 500,000 that we approved. And that's so that they can kind of get the rest of the funding they need to go forward. The library renovation project was over budget, of course, because it took so long to raise money, of course. And so they're like, please just give us the rest of the money we need to finish. So that's that one. There's a preservation and restoration of historic town documents. The CCHS amenities building, which we did vote to approve last year, but it was contingent upon Concord. Concord dropped the ball. Well, there's more to the story than that, obviously, but it's coming back around. This time it's going to happen for real. And then there was the 200,000 for the housing trust for the Bog House and 100,000 for rental assistance for Carlisle residents. This is 2 years of $50,000 rental assistance for low-income residents. These are residents that that benefited from funding associated with. I can't remember the name of it. It was the emergency relief stuff that happened during COVID. From the Biden TAPA. And this is kind of a holdover to help those residents be able to stay in their homes. Ultimately, the long-term plan is for the Housing Trust to find a much more sustainable source of funding to help these residents. And that's it. It's about $2 million worth of funding overall.
So I had a little more too. So the COA actually does do stuff on that rental assistance too, and probably the funds come from this.
That is actually it goes through the COA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I have kind of a lack of liaison report in that I've been trying to go to the Trails Committee for a while, but I missed the last 3 meetings. And I'm sure they would probably want to say something about the Bog House, and I'm not sure if they have or have not already. Has the Trails Committee weighed in on the Bog House at all?
No, but I should probably go visit them.
Yeah, I'm going to attend their next meeting. I'm almost positive. I really have been trying to hit that.
They just
So
had one on Wednesday. Was it last week?
yeah, I had a conflict. I've had a conflict the last 3 meetings that they've had, and I made sure that I'm going to hit the next one, so I'll be sure to bring that up to them. I'm not sure they're gonna. I don't know what they're going to say, but obviously there is a trailhead where the Bog House is, but there's also other parking and trail access nearby. So, but I'm still going to be curious as to what they have to say about that.
Thanks for the reminder, Chris. I should talk to them.
Any others?
I don't have anything from Magic because I haven't seen a meeting notice since the holidays, so I might have missed it.
There was a meeting. I've been going to Magic, Stacy. There
Was
was
there one
one,
today?
no, last week. Wait, hold on.
There was a sub-regional something today that I missed.
Yeah.
Okay, so I
There,
apparently missed last week's.
um, last week's was about Data Town. It was just like an overview of all the things that Data Town can do.
Okay.
The community share for me is like the real value add. I mean, obviously it's all interesting, but where you learn about what other towns are doing. I will say two things, if I can, is now an okay time. I can give two like little things about. So MAPC and HLC are spearheading because of some feedback from rural and small towns over the last year, a coordinated effort where they get the regional planning agencies and rural and small towns together to kind of like bring us together as a cohort so that we can do more idea sharing. And they're also rolling out a housing choice. This is all terms that I might be familiar with and you might not be, but there's a housing choice program at the state that like up until recently didn't really have a pathway for rural towns to be involved in. So that's like something that's coming down the pipeline. They had a meeting today, but the invitation to planners only came to my inbox today, so I was like too busy to attend. But I do plan to I do know a bunch of the planners that are going to attend those, and I plan to kind of like go to as many as I can just to get ideas and learn what, right? And then the other thing I actually just learned about today, which I'm going to get wrong, so I'm just going to look at my email real quick. It's called the Massachusetts Land Use Strategy, MILUS. I don't know where the I comes from. Anyway, it's it looks like it's coordinated by it's MAPC, the EEA, HLC, MassDOT, and the Executive Office of Economic Development, the Office of Climate Innovation and Resilience, and they're coordinating, they have these webinars and they're coordinating the MILUS will result in a coordinated strategy, map, and interactive web-based land use planning tool for use by state agencies, planners, project developers, and municipalities. So I don't know. But the webinar is on Thursday, February 26th. I might attend and just see what they're cooking. So I like when all these agencies like work together because that is helpful usually.
And on a bright note, we were not in the list of towns that the state attorney general's office sued for non-compliance. So yay us. That's huge.
Yeah.
Right. And actually, this is the week we should hear from the attorney general's office about our zoning. So they have 90 days, and this is the week.
Yeah.
Ashley and town clerk and I were talking about it. This is the week.
Okay, we'll keep us
I thought
posted.
we're not officially approved yet.
We are by HLC, but not by the attorney general's office. So,
Oh man.
yeah. But like for many towns, they got approval from the attorney general before they got the HLC one. So we are, whatever. I don't know.
Oh, so while we're kind of on that topic, I'll throw in that about a month and a half ago, I went to Simon Cataldo's office hours at the library, and I told him that I was on the planning board. I did not tell him I specifically told him I was not speaking for the planning board, but I expressed my own displeasure with the state legislature forcing us to do our, so feedback I heard from town a lot was that this is, not, it's not well done. It doesn't suit our town well at all. And it was difficult to, get it to work here. And, I did say, so I said, but I did say that, if I had to imagine, I also told them that we were working on our own, zoning, which we are. That's what we were doing tonight. And, it would be, I you know, I don't know how the rest of the board feels about this, but I would not be excited about either of those bills getting through the state legislature. I'm interested if anybody else has an opinion on those two bills.
You're talking about YIMBY and YIGBY?
Yes.
I haven't studied them well enough, Chris, to have an opinion yet. I'm sorry.
I've
Well,
skimmed, and like
well,
definitely there are pieces that I'm like, oh, that raises questions for me.
yeah, and I think town council did a pretty good job of doing a summary of what it was
Hmm.
for us. You know, some of the main takeaways from it, and it, you know, if you, so here's my opinion on it. Uh, you know, if you thought MBTA was difficult, this would probably be harder.
I think the big difference is that a lot of these come through just as law, though, Chris, not as compliance law.
That's true. That's true. That's true. And but wouldn't we have to change our own bylaws to conform to the law?
And maybe, maybe not.
Yeah, and I thought about that as well. You know, it would just kind of, you know, make it so that our bylaws, anything that was conflicting with the state law is going to now be the state law, not our bylaws. Right?
Hmm.
I do think that at least as they're written currently, they give like a year to some of them, maybe not all of them. Like they're it's like effective a year after. I think I read that, but I mean, obviously it's still in a preliminary format.
Yes, yeah. And I, you know, I just would, you know, rather I would rather try that we try had the ability to try and come up with solutions that we think are going to work rather than the state force it on us.
I'm curious, did Simon express a view on either of those bills?
Yeah, so I would say if anything, it felt like, well, I'm going to vote for it anyway.
Mm.
Um, but I shouldn't say that. I mean, he didn't say that. You know, I shouldn't. I can't speak for how he would vote or anything like that. But I also know that you know the state legislature is under pressure from a lot of people to have more affordable housing. So that's what they're trying to do. And you know, he you know he did vote for the economic bill that included the MBTA communities, and I didn't really hold that against them because I know what it's like to, you know, not agree with everything in a bill, but still think the bill should go through. So, you know, but I just, you know, told them that you know I personally would prefer not to go through an MBTA type of communities thing again. And you know I was wondering if anybody else felt similarly, and I still don't have a feel for that actually.
Yeah, I apologize. I missed town council's review of that, so I haven't fully digested either of them and need to read more to have an opinion also. So
I haven't read all of it, but from a few key points that I thought I read, sounds like it could be pretty impactful.
I mean, Title V would still apply, right?
Yeah, it'll still apply, but
Yeah.
Well,
it's still very impactful.
yeah, potentially there would be no minimum acreage. There would be no, you know, every lot would be capable of having multifamily housing.
Mhm.
You know, these are some of the bigger things that, you know,
Yeah.
I don't think most of our, I think most of the residents here moved here because that's something, this is more what they wanted than what the law is saying, what the proposed law is saying it wants. So,
It removes a lot of the checks that are in place right now.
Does it get into like mixed use at all, or is it strictly housing and residential?
I don't remember any mixed use stuff in it. I was focused on the residential since we are mostly a residential
Just
community.
curious, yeah.
I think Ethan's summary, I don't think had any mixed use references.
Yeah, I don't recall any.
Curious. Okay, well, we'll have to follow that and see what happens.
Yeah.
I assume a lot can change before anything, things get changed in committee and edited, and we'll have to keep following that. So if you hear anything, Julie, let us know. But yeah, something
I will let you
to
know.
do on all of our copious free time. I think we're at the end of our agenda, unless anyone has anything else.
I did want to make one mention, Sarah.
Sure, of course.
So your March agenda, the fire station renovation and expansion project is going to be coming to you, the site plan review. And also the community farm school is looking to relocate. And so they are going to come to you also for a site plan review. But regarding the fire station, there is a question about whether the planning board, so the fire station project, right? There's an architect and an engineer hired by the town, like to work on behalf of the town. And there has been a question of whether the planning board would want to hire a peer review engineer for the engineering design. And I just was wondering if you guys had any thoughts on that, because if you want that, I will try to get that. I'll put together a scope and try to get quotes, so that when you open the hearing in March, you can make a decision. So just to try to make sure things keep moving.
So my opinion on that is that we hold private entities to that standard. We should hold ourselves to that standard too.
Agreed.
Okay. All right. So I will get that going and hope to have a couple quotes for you guys to look at for that at your next meeting. Thank you.
Great.
Thanks.
Thanks.
And then, so we've got that. We've got the continuation of the hearing from tonight. Any other hearings?
Those are the 3 hearings, and then Woodward Village is scheduled to come back to you guys. So I guess we will see, because I think you were hoping to be able to ascertain more, maybe if it wasn't like winter time. So if it's still like a raging winter, maybe that one goes to April. But yeah, TBD, I guess. But yeah,
let's keep our eye on that, because if we have like a huge thaw, it actually could be a good time to go and look at how things are draining. So
right.
If anyone notices a warm spell, we should all go look at Woodward Village again and look at that site.
Warm's a relative term.
Yeah,
exactly.
True.
That is your next agenda. And then of course all the other fun discussion items that will, more updates, more zoning, things like that.
Okay, but ADUs are done. So that's
the regulations,
regulations are done. So we've tied a bow on that, which feels good. So.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, does anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion adjourned.
Second.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Julie and Noelle, for all your time.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Stay
Good night.
warm,
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everybody.